And this is Crimes, Cryptids, and Controversies.
This is a true crime and paranormal podcast, and today we're going to continue talking about the crazed maniac, Darrell Edward Brooks Jr. It's going to continue as a mini-series, and while we're going along, if you guys contribute and say, hey, I want to know about this, about Darrell, then we'll try to research that and add it in for you guys. So we're a weekly podcast, but sometimes we get excited. We post more than once a week, so don't forget to subscribe and keep up with our random episodes. With that being said, let's move on into Darrell's escalating violent behavior.
So, between 2009 and 2011, Brooks was in and out of jail for a series of crimes, including resisting or obstructing an officer, strangulation, and suffocation.
You get that?
Excuse me?
So we went from little things, drugs.
Frick?
I don't want to say it's not violent that he had sex with a girl, but regardless, he didn't kidnap her and take her.
I'm sorry, kidnapping?
You know what I mean?
Are we getting into that?
No,
next?
I guess,
like, Jesus.
I guess what I'm saying is it wasn't violent.
Right.
He didn't violently take the girl and rape her. Yes, it's rape because it's statutory rape.
But it was like under the guise of romance and love.
So I guess before now, we had Darrell Brooks just acting out and doing little things. Now we're showing Darrell Brooks' violence escalating. He's getting violent now with his crimes.
Super. All right. So during a 2011 bust, he was charged with restricting or obstructing an officer for a second time after he was pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt.
So see the violence? Because normally when you're pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt, you're like, oh my goodness, officer, I am so sorry. Or I did have it on. I was reaching for the glove box.
Yeah.
But you don't try to strangle or hurt an officer or resist arrest and pull out, or you know what I mean?
That escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
To an unnecessary degree.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, during a traffic stop, a Milwaukee police officer jumped inside Brooks's car, fearing he was about to be run over.
Okay, and we're back in 2011, remember?
And he's running people over now? Is this his let me mow people down with my car era?
We're back 11 years.
Wow. Quote, as Brooks began to drive away while the officer was talking to him, the officer got inside the car and wrestled for control of the steering wheel.
And that was reported by the Milwaukee Journal.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right. Eventually, the officer stopped the car and removed the keys as Brooks ran off. He was later found hiding in a children's playhouse on the same block and taken into custody. In 2016, Brooks was busted again for failing to register as a sex offender, and in July 2020, he fired a gun at his nephew during a fight over a cell phone.
At the time, Darrell's mother, and Anaji were living in the same 4-bedroom house in Arlington Heights, Milwaukee. Where was Anaji's mother? Unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
I know. I didn't want to tell you. But Anaji's mother, which was Darrell's twin sister.
Excuse me, it was his older sister?
Yes. Older twin sister. Died of an illness back in January 25th of 2014.
Oh, shit.
So, I mean, if they were born in 82, you're talking 32 years old maybe. Wow. So I'm guessing he had to be a teenager when his mother died. A young teenager, 14, 15 maybe.
Dude, this whole family, I feel so bad.
I feel like the system was here. He was definitely involved with the system. However, I feel like, well, we'll get into that further. His mother talks about what she feels like happened, and she wants the world to know she's not a horrible person, and she just wants to stop this from happening to anybody else.
Because, angel.
I know. But anyhow, he did this to his nephew, unfortunately. His nephew basically told the judge that he wants to slap him in the face with a no contact order, and he wants the book thrown at him.
Physically, please do it. Well, the saga continues because Anaji said that he got into a friend's car following the dispute, and he was driving away from Darrell when his uncle, quote, walked into the front yard with a gun and fired one shot at him, unquote, leaving the man in fear of his safety, court papers say, the man being Anaji. That's
so
really
then they
bad.
charged him with 2 counts of using a dangerous weapon and a felony count of possession of a firearm. Because remember, he's a felon.
Oh, shit, that's right.
He's not supposed to have a firearm.
Oh, my goodness. And officers soon found Brooks with a stolen Beretta 9mm handgun and a clear plastic baggie with 3 multicolored methamphetamine pills inside of the baggie. He was ordered to stay away from his nephew and his mother, Darrell's mother. In the victim impact statement obtained by the Daily Mail, the nephew wrote that the encounter, quote, made me come to the conclusion that this man wasn't family or kin to me, unquote. Brooks was facing 10 years behind bars for that specific crime, the heaviest sentence he faced so far, but when the court was unable to guarantee him a speedy trial due to the backlog of cases from COVID-19 related delays, he was released in February of 2021 on a $500 bail. Okay, so we went from 10 years to oopsie doodles, we can't get you in because of COVID, pay us $500, goodbye.
Okay, so we have a felon in possession of a firearm.
And meth.
And he shot the gun. So I am confused on, I don't care how backed up you are.
You keep his little ass in jail. This is one, like Leslie Allen Williams, it could have been avoided. It seems like, had the criminal justice system just gotten their shit together. I don't know, I feel like don't give me that shit of, oh, well, it's taxpayer money. Because it's like, okay, well, now all these families are destroyed because you didn't.
Well, and that's why I wanted to include all this at first. I was kind of like, this might be too much, but then I thought, no, you know what? The jury didn't get to hear all this.
Yeah.
If you watched Court TV, Fox, whoever you guys watched, whoever you listened to, none of this stuff was covered. None of this stuff was given to the jury. They weren't allowed to see all this because it would make them impartial. However,
I'm impartial. I'm mad.
I feel like if I was on the jury, I would have wanted to see all this to go, oh, you have had so many chances. You have done this forever. I don't feel one bit sympathy of what you did.
Well, and do you remember in the Eileen Wuornos case that we talked about a few episodes back, they pulled some sort of law out of the woodwork, basically being like, oh, well, we can hold this stuff up in court, this evidence up in court to kind of give a character background of what a shitty person she is.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to see in the trial, what's really funny is Darrell being so smart yet so dumb at the same time, representing himself, brings things up that lets the state's attorney then submit them into evidence. However, the judge drew the line about this rape that started out in the sexual offender thing. So the jury never knew about him shooting a gun at his nephew. They never knew about statutory rape. They didn't know he was a sex offender. They didn't know he did all of these things.
God, I can't believe that they wouldn't pull something like in the Wuornos case.
Yeah. I feel like they were trying to be so careful with this case, so overly careful that even you're going to see during the trial, the judge and the state's attorney babies him to make sure that later on he can never appeal and say they help contact his witnesses, they help guide him with education that nobody needs to do. If you want to represent yourself, that's your problem if you didn't go through law school. But they literally take their time and let him do all these things so that later on he can't appeal anything.
Good. Fuck him, dude.
So you'll see the judge in the trial later on argue with him about introducing things that will let the state's attorney say he's a registered sex offender to the jury. It comes up later. That's why I want to give our listeners the background on who he really is and what he really did before this trial came.
What a dirtbag. Okay, whatever. We're moving on.
Sorry, guys. We got on a tangent.
Okay, so from there, after he was just released, thanks, COVID. Another thing that COVID fucked up.
Right. And that wasn't just in Wisconsin. That was every state.
God darn it. Okay, so from there, Brooks went to Georgia, where he was arrested for a misdemeanor battery with a designation of family violence a little over 3 months after he got out of jail.
All right, now we're going to talk about the final straw. Following Brooks' troubles in Georgia, he made his way back to Wisconsin, where his tendencies for violence bubbled up yet again while he was staying at the American Inn Motel in Milwaukee's Lenox Heights neighborhood with his ex-girlfriend. He allegedly accosted the woman and knocked her cell phone out of her hand and then went after her in his Ford Escape when she fled.
Oh my God, it really is his, weapon of choice.
Yeah.
Guns and cars.
There you go.
Okay.
So Darrell caught up with her at the BP gas station about a half-mile from the motel and demanded she get in his car, court records alleged. When she refused, he struck her in the face and then ran her over with his car, leaving the woman with swelling to her lip and dry blood on her face and tire tracks on her left pants leg.
What the fuck did he do? A burnout on her leg?
The fact that he already did this?
Yeah. Again, take this man's car. Take his license. Gee whiz.
So the ex-girlfriend later told cops that Brooks had allegedly threatened to kill her on multiple occasions, had previously tried to choke her, and was jealous and controlling. So Brooks denied those allegations. Of course, he denies everything. And he suggested to the police that the woman made them up because she was drunk.
Oh, yeah, blame her.
Yes, which is exactly what he does during the trial with his child's mother that he got into the incident with.
Yeah, I bet.
So Darrell ended up being charged with recklessly endangering safety, bail jumping, battery, and disorderly conduct in the incident, but was given an inappropriately low bail of $1,000.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
So you run somebody over with a vehicle, you're a convicted felon, you are recklessly driving, and you're jumping bail.
Like, you have a history of jumping bail. Make that bitch a millie and keep him in jail.
Okay, so yeah, that's where the Milwaukee County District Attorney, John Chisholm, later said leaving him free to wreak havoc on the Christmas parade about 3 weeks later was a mistake. His bond should not have been $1,000.
Damn.
I feel like that we're missing like 3 zeros on that bond, but anyhow, that's what happened.
Because, like, that's a big mistake. That's not an oopsie.
He shouldn't have been out.
Paper.
He shouldn't have been out.
No, absolutely.
But that's what happened. So around 4:35 p.m. that Sunday, the Waukesha Police Department was alerted to another domestic disturbance involving Brooks and the ex-girlfriend in the vicinity of the White Rock School. Oh boy, here we go.
Is that a high
you
school?
Ready?
I'm not ready, but go ahead.
Yeah. But by the time the cops could respond, it was too late. As Brooks desperately drove away from the school, he barreled down toward the Christmas parade, smashed through the barricades, and plowed through the revelers and marchers, celebrating the annual event with, quote, no emotion on his face, end quote, police said. He left 6 people dead, the youngest being an 8-year-old, Jackson Sparks, and dozens more injured, many who are still hospitalized. And there was like the marching grannies.
Oh,
I know. He went right through them. And I think 3 of them are also.
I was wondering, I was like, why is everyone in this lineup old AF except for this one boy?
It's so sad. The thing is, like, even when you talk about 6 people dying, which is incredibly huge, there's so many other people that have broken femurs, broken arms. Oh my God,
like, and that's never going to heal. Like,
there's so much more to this story that just looking at the vehicle, which we'll have to put pictures up, the wreckage from the vehicle is just from bodies, and it's like the whole front is smashed in.
Okay.
It's just really sad. Like,
that's
the
terrible.
Pictures, incredible. Quote, there are not words to describe the risk that this defendant presents to our community, end quote. Prosecutor Susan Opper told Waukesha County Court Commissioner Kevin Costello during Brooks' initial hearing. So in the beginning, everybody's trying to say, we need to not let this guy out again.
No way.
Quote, not only a flight risk, but the dangerousness that he presents, his history of violence, and the allegations in this complaint, where it is stated plainly that on several occasions he was told to stop by police officers. Everything was done to get him to stop, and he just simply continued down the roadway, causing death and destruction in his path, end quote. We're definitely going to get into this as it goes through the timeline, guys. So these are just small clips to get you going here. But there is an officer who was at the beginning in a vest who almost gave his life.
Shoot.
Pulled a gun, tried to shoot at him to get him to stop, jumped in front of the vehicle, tried everything in a split moment. You think about how fast this happened.
God.
And how fast that cop had to act. And he did. And you'll hear about him later. So many people tried, and they were yelling at him, and his window was down. They were yelling at him to stop.
That dead face scares me to think of.
He, it wasn't like he had his head down or...
No, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll get into that next time.
We will. We're going to get into that.
Good God.
Originally, Brooks was charged with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, but Opper said he will be hit with the 6th charge following the death of the youngest victim, 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, who had been in critical condition after that attack, and he was, in fact, hit with that 6th charge. Each homicide count at that time, in the beginning of the trial, carries a potential sentence of life behind bars without parole. Quote, I'm an old guy who has been doing this for almost 40 years, end quote, the court commissioner said during the hearing. Quote, the nature of this offense is shocking. I've not seen anything like this in my very long career, end quote. So the court commissioner is the one who heard the case in the beginning just to set a trial date and to set the bond. That's what they do.
Okay.
So we're going to stop there because we're kind of getting at our time limit, and then we'll move on further along into the history and the actions of Darrell Brooks.
Good God. All right, well, that concludes part 2, you guys. Don't forget, we just got our Patreon going, so we have tiers that include merch sent to your house, live stream sessions, hanging out with us, Discord access, ad-free episodes, early access to episodes. Like, it's gonna be lit, guys. You should definitely join. And don't forget, like, you guys really do support us and what we do, and just
absolutely, we love our listeners.
Oh my God, seriously. And like, we really couldn't do this without you. So if you guys could just help us by rating our podcast, like, that's just a free way to be able to support the podcast and our YouTube channel and everything that we have going.
And let us know if there's something more you want to know. Like, you're like, ooh, I want to know this about Darrell. If you hit us up quick enough before we get done with the whole thing, we can look into that and add it in.
Yeah, for sure. Or if we hear like enough feedback, we can just do like a full listener feedback episode. So you can also follow us on Instagram at cx3_podcast. cx3podcast.com is our website, where we're going to post our blog, transcriptions of the episodes, and you can email us at cx3podcast@gmail.com for any sort of suggestions, for cases you want to hear. Anyway, we'll see you guys in part 3. Bye.
Bye.